It's Monday morning here on KSJE. Happy Labor Day to everyone. And someone who is working today, besides me, is Lewis Campbell, who's joining me for our Monday Reboot segment where we talk about technology. Lewis, good morning.
Monday Reboot.
Yes. Good to have you with us. Let's talk a little bit about this 3D printed beef you were telling me about before we came on the air.
Yeah, I was going to ask first, do you have to boot first in order to reboot? Because I'm not sure if I'm booted up yet.
You should be booted up. Yeah, even on a holiday, you should be booted up. Yeah.
There you go. Osaka University. They manufactured the first 3D printed slice of Wagyu beef. It's a steak. It uses stem cells isolated from Japanese cattle. And I'm looking at a picture of it here, and it, honest to goodness, looks like a real piece of steak. At least if the picture's accurate, I can't tell the difference. It's got the marbling and everything.
And that particular type of beef is really really coveted, right? I mean, it's very expensive to buy it in the store from a regular old cow, and so I suppose it should taste pretty good if anyone's ever tried to taste it, but I don't think we know, do we?
Yeah, there's nothing in the article that I'm reading about the taste, but there's a lot of discussion about how they replicated the look and texture and feel.
Okay.
Amazing. They use the stem cells to create bovine cells. They put the bovine cells together in fat and muscle fibers, and then they 3D print the whole thing together into a steak. So that's pretty amazing.
And I guess folks who are watching and listening to us this morning may be wondering why on earth would anyone want to do that, but I guess if it works and tastes pretty good, excuse me, are we thinking about food for like inner space travel or Mars or things along that line, or am I just jumping way ahead?
I think they're just thinking about a cheap way to, make Wagyu beef, right? Maximize
I suppose.
profits.
I guess you're not raising a whole cow, so I suppose that's cheaper. Okay. Well, interesting. I'll look forward to another article to tell us how it tastes.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting. All right. Very good. Let's talk about, what else is going on? Bitcoin is back in the news, right? And cryptocurrency as a whole.
Yeah, there are a couple of different things. So first off, there's three quick stories I'll bring up. First off is Cuba is going to start accepting cryptocurrency.
All right.
Okay, that's one story. I don't know any details. That's all I know. Second story, so one of these gentlemen who had $1 million of his Bitcoin stolen through malware. Later on, the authorities caught the people that made the malware. It wasn't directed at him, but it was responsible for his loss of his Bitcoin. There are a couple of teenagers in, I believe, England. So now this guy is suing the parents of these teenagers for the $1 million he lost in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's interesting, and so that that kind of we can follow that to see how these kinds of things are going to work out. And then the third story that's really interesting is in Canada. I guess somebody thought it would be a good idea to sneak into an abandoned gas well and set up an entire Bitcoin mining plant on that gas well without any permits or anything, just doing it without telling anybody. And of course, after the neighbors in that area started realizing that something was operating there, they called the authorities, and the authorities were like, "Hey, you never asked us to do this," and they went and shut them down.
Whoops.
Alberta, Canada. So, and the reason I think that's an interesting story is that's not the first time. Like, this has been happening worldwide more and more often. People are just like setting up a Bitcoin mining wherever they can find power and trying to get as much money off of it as they can before somebody shuts them down. It's becoming a thing.
Wow. And that is, I guess, that's how these cryptocurrencies, at least most of them, are created, right? Is some of this blockchain calculations, and just takes up massive amounts of computing power, and that's how you can make Bitcoin and others?
Yep, it's pretty simple. It's
Says you.
Yeah, well, not simple to do it, but a simple concept.
Right.
To keep, what's the thing with currency is you've got to control the value of currency by controlling the supply, right? So Bitcoin, it's built in, because in order to generate a Bitcoin, you have to solve a mathematically complex formula, and the more Bitcoin that's out there, the more complex the formula is. It takes a lot of computing power to solve it and even generate one Bitcoin. So that's how the value is retained.
Interesting. But yet Bitcoin has gone up and down in value, so that's I'm not quite clear on how cryptocurrencies get a value, but Bitcoin is back up to about $50,000 a coin, right? These
Well,
days.
Bitcoin, yeah, and Bitcoin gets a value just like anything else that's bought and sold on an open market.
I
It just
suppose.
depends on how much. So the way the stock market works is actually pretty simple. The stock price is basically how much somebody was willing to pay for it the last time somebody checked, right?
Well, sure.
So Bitcoin is the same thing. It goes up and down based on, if there's people out there that are willing to pay, $50,000 a Bitcoin for it, that's its value.
But when it was
And it,
down to like 30,000, it wasn't easier to make a Bitcoin at that time, was it?
Not necessarily, but again, it's supply and demand. So
Okay.
a lot of those dips were about people's confidence and whether it was going to be a good cryptocurrency or a good investment, and a lot of them were based on the Chinese like going in and shutting down a bunch of illegal Bitcoin mining rigs and thus
Right.
reducing the production and things like that. So it's still supply and demand based.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I learned something new. I'd say I always do, usually. But I don't know about the 3D printed beef yet. I'm going to pause on that one. We'll have to wait and
We'll
see.
have to wait until we can get a slice.
Yeah.
So you and I will have to get a slice. We'll have to like have a cookout or something, taste it, and then come on the show and say this is what it tasted like.
Right. Okay. Let me know.
You're like, yeah, never. That's what
We'll
he's
see.
thinking.
We'll see.
Like,
I'll never.
never
Say,
gonna
I would
like
say
it.
never, but just doesn't. I'm not sure. But anyways, all right. Thanks, Lewis. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Always great to talk to you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
All right. You too. Thank you. That's Lewis Campbell. He joins me every Monday on our Monday Reboot segment from Synergy Computer Systems, right here on KSJE Farmington.